I'm going to have my baby back in my hometown. Ashley, you're just in the way, so could you please leave soon? One day, when I returned from work, there was my sister, Brittany, who had supposedly married and left home years ago, in my room. She was proudly stroking her bulging belly as if to show it off to me, but I couldn't say anything at the sight. Seeing me standing dumbfounded, looking around the room, she let out a vulgar laugh. A woman who can't even get a boyfriend is just a nuisance. I've thrown out everything that was in the room to make it easier for you to leave, so you should be thankful. By morning, my room, which had been just as usual when I left for work, now had nothing left. The bed, the table, the rug. Not even the curtains. Nothing was left. The only thing there was Brittany, standing arrogantly in the center of the room. Your smartphone and wallet are in your work bag, right? If so, you won't die of exposure, and it's about time you stopped leeching off our parents and started living on your own, Ashley. That's true. I didn't think about getting my stuff back or kicking her out. I just didn't want to see her face anymore and wanted to leave. That was all. As I turned my back, I could hear her, unable to contain herself, start laughing. You can't say anything even after all this. Aren't you too weak, Ashley? Ignoring the blatant mockery, I continued down the hallway. My dad was on the phone in the living room, and my mom, Sabrina, was probably preparing dinner. I passed through the front door, listening to the cheerful sound of my dad's voice and my mom's humming. I breathed in the night air. I readjusted my bag on my shoulder and headed for the area near the station where there were many hotels. Along the way, it suddenly occurred to me. Come to think of it, who's going to pay the mortgage on this house now? Well, never mind. I'm Ashley, a 27-year-old office lady leading a pretty normal life. I'm working as an office worker while also doing a side job, and while I'm making a steady living as an office worker, I'm also doing work that I like on the side. I am involved in a wide range of activities, including video editing, web writing, and blog management. At 27, I'm at what society considers the age to start thinking about marriage, but love and marriage aren't really on my mind. I enjoy my work, and with Brittany being treated like a princess at home and feeling a sense of alienation from my family, the desire to build a happy family of my own just doesn't take root. I've always lived at home, sharing my life with my parents. Housework is supposed to be divided between me and my mom, though I end up doing most of it. My mom comes back from her part-time job exhausted, and seeing her like that makes me think that I, being younger, should at least handle the housework. Ever since I started working, I've been contributing to the household expenses, which is several times more than what my friends living alone in the city contribute. I'm an indoor person who loves to study, and since I didn't go out much even during my student days, I didn't have many desires and didn't have much to spend my money on besides savings. Even after becoming a working adult, I didn't go out much, so I contributed more to the household expenses to make things a bit easier for my parents. Moreover, since last year, at my parents' request, I've been contributing towards the mortgage as well. My parents seem to think it's no problem for me to contribute more towards the living expenses and mortgage, considering me to be serious and earning a steady income. However, I feel like my parents aren't very interested in me. That's because their attention has always been on Brittany, my younger sister by a year. She is outgoing and very active. During her student days, she was always going out somewhere on holidays. My parents naturally thought that her lifestyle required money, so even when she was living at home, they never asked her for contributions towards the mortgage or even the living expenses. It seems that in my parents' view, based on our personalities, I, the older sister, was seen as low maintenance, while she required more attention. A little while ago, Brittany moved out to live on her own. Her workplace wasn't far from our parents' house, and I wondered why she wanted to live alone, so I asked her. Then, Brittany, Because I want to try living by myself. I want to go out at night, and I can invite my boyfriend over. Said to me. This answer was far from what I had imagined. I thought it would be something about wanting to make things easier for our parents or wanting to be independent. Meanwhile, I had no intention of leaving our family home, thinking it natural to support each other as a family, even if it meant contributing a bit more towards the household expenses. Then, one day when I returned home, she was waiting for me. Welcome back, Ashley. I'm getting married. And I want you to come to the family meeting, please. The place was going to be a fancy restaurant in the city. Make sure you wear something decent, Ashley. I don't want to be laughed at because of your usual plain clothes. She said. I don't have any glamorous clothes to wear. I decided to go in my usual suit. After all, it's the most respectful outfit I have. Brittany's fiancé, Walter, seemed sincere and was a genuinely nice guy. Nice to meet you, Ashley. I'm looking forward to getting to know you. When he greeted me, I had a very good impression of him. I thought to myself that Brittany, for once, had chosen a very good partner. I was hoping that maybe, just maybe, Brittany would settle down a bit with him by her side, thinking sisterly thoughts. At first, both families were stiff and formal, but as drinks were served, the formal tension eased, and the conversation turned to talks of future children after marriage. I'm embarrassed to say, our eldest daughter, Ashley, is nearing 30, unmarried with no plans for it, so it looks like we can only hope for grandchildren from our younger daughter, Brittany. I'm so eager to see them. My mom shared. I want to have kids right after getting married. Maybe around 3. The conversation grew lively. Suddenly, I noticed Walter's previously cheerful smile had turned into a forced grimace, and he seemed uncomfortable. I felt he was uncomfortable just like me. I wished it would be over soon. After that, my parents started doting on Brittany as an investment towards their first grandchild. If Brittany said, eating here makes it easier to get pregnant, they'd immediately go out to buy it, telling her, eat a lot. One day, they even went to a department store to buy dresses because tight clothes might be preventing pregnancy. And if Brittany mentioned, visiting this place can bless you with children, they'd take her on a trip there. My parents running around at her whim was usual for me, so I didn't think much of it, just the usual again. However, one day, Brittany made a snide remark to me. It's tough for me because Ashley won't marry or even try to give mom and dad a grandchild. Must be nice, living the easy single life. No plans to marry and move out? Oh, but with that plain face, I guess men aren't exactly flocking to you. Maybe you need a bit more appeal. Should I teach you how to put on makeup? She laughed. Her words irritated me, but I knew arguing back would only lead to hysterics and an unmanageable situation, so I chose to say nothing. She has always been confident that she is more loved by our parents than I am, often speaking to me with boldness. Then one day, Brittany got pregnant. Even she can get pregnant. I wondered if she really could become a good mom, but remembering Walter, I thought, with a husband like him, maybe it'll be okay. Brittany said, I'm pregnant, and I don't want to be a burden at work, and I want to focus on raising my child. And quit her job with ease. However, Walter thought that raising a child would be expensive and that living on a single income to become a housewife wasn't realistic. But she didn't listen to him and quit her job anyway. One day, when I returned from work, I noticed my room's door was ajar by about 3 inches. I'm meticulous, so I never leave closets or drawers open. Of course, I always make sure to close the door firmly. There's no way my parents would enter my room to clean. Because I do all the cleaning. Cautiously opening the door to my room, I was shocked. There was nothing there. Although I never had many possessions, The things I cherished since childhood were stored in labeled boxes in the closet. The electronic dictionary my parents bought me for my 10th birthday, the commuter pass case my grandparents gave me when I turned 15 for my high school entrance celebration, my diploma, certificates, trophies, albums, all gone. Even if they were old or worn out, they were important to me. Everything that was supposed to be there until this morning was gone without a trace. Standing dumbfounded alone in the empty room, I heard a familiar voice from behind. "Oh, Ashley, you're back? I've decided to have my baby back in my hometown," Brittany said with a laugh, and I immediately understood. It must have been Brittany who had moved my belongings. "Brittany, where did you put my stuff? In storage?" I asked in a panic, but she said with a laugh, "What's the rush? It wasn't anything important, right? Just junk." Hearing my important things referred to as junk made anger well up inside me. "They might be junk to you, but they're important to me. Give them back now. And who does something as insane as moving all someone's belongings while they're not home?" It must have been the first time she saw me raise my voice like that. Because Brittany seemed surprised and then blurted out, "I've already thrown them away." I think it was the first time in my 27 years that I've been this angry, but I couldn't stop. "Enough! It's outrageous to throw away someone's belongings without permission. Bring them back now." But she unapologetically said, "They've already been taken by the garbage truck, so it's impossible, obviously." She said this with a look of disdain. Continuing, she added, "What's the big deal? Getting so mad just because I threw away some junk? Are you crazy? Don't yell like that, it's bad for my baby." She said this while stroking her belly, showing it off to me. And then she continued, "I've decided to live here even after the baby is born. It's going to be tough after childbirth, and Mom and Dad want to see their grandchild every day. Walter plans to stay here too, so just using my room won't be enough. That's why I decided to use your room as well. You understand, right? After all, Ashley, you're the unfilial one." The sheer selfishness of not considering anyone else's circumstances left me dumbfounded. Going back to one's parents' house for childbirth is supposed to be a temporary return around the birth. But to continue living there with her husband and child? That's not a temporary return, it's cohabitation. And then, to be unilaterally labeled as unfilial, my anger started bubbling up. Do you even realize you're being unfilial, Ashley? Being the eldest daughter and still living at home without getting married. I'm going to show Mom and Dad my child's face and make a life where we can see each other every day. You know who's doing more for our parents, right?" It was as if I was being blamed one-sidedly, but I couldn't just stay silent. "If you want to live in this house as a family, then that's something the whole family should discuss. Especially since you want to use my room, you should have told me beforehand. If I knew the date you were coming back, I could have." Before I could finish, she interrupted by banging on my room door. "Shut up! See, this is why you're always so annoying. That's why I had to make it so you'd have to leave, because you're just a nuisance." That's just unilateral anger. She's trying to use someone else's room, has thrown away the belongings of the person currently living there, and yet she talks as if she's the victim. Brittany kept banging on the door. "You're in the way! Disappear! Don't ever come back!" I was left with nothing but dumbfounded astonishment. "Then, as you wish, I'll just leave. I don't have any belongings to pack anyway." My mounting anger had dissipated into sheer astonishment. I felt I didn't even want to see them ever again. I turned around and headed straight for the entrance. My parents didn't seem to care that I, who had just come home, was leaving through the front door. My dad was probably bragging on the phone to a relative about how his pregnant daughter had come home and would be living with them for good. From the kitchen, where my mom was probably making Brittany's favorite dishes, I could hear her humming. I wasn't living with my family expecting anything in return. I thought the difference in how Brittany and I were treated since childhood was because she was charming and good at sweet-talking our parents, and I had accepted that. But now, as an adult, handling most of the household responsibilities, this was the treatment I got. Despite most of my salary going towards the household expenses and the mortgage to make life easier. And yet, they welcomed her, who contributed nothing to the household expenses, with open arms. The bad aspects of my parents I had tried not to see were now merging with my feelings towards Brittany, turning into disdain. Without saying I'm leaving or goodbye, I opened the front door. Neither my parents nor Brittany spoke to me until the door closed behind me. A week later, on payday. Usually, today would be the day I transfer living expenses and the mortgage payment into my dad's bank account, but I didn't make the deposit. There's no obligation for me to pay the mortgage for a house I no longer live in. The mortgage was initially taken out by my dad, so it should have been planned according to his income to make repayments manageable. I figured that my not making a deposit now wouldn't suddenly make the household budget unsustainable. However, after a while, I received a call from my mom. As soon as I answered,
"Ashley, we're in big trouble. We received a notice for unpaid mortgage. I checked, and there's no money in your dad's bank account."
She rushed into it. She was panicking, not waiting for my response before continuing.
"Ashley, do you know why? Did you withdraw it?"
Contrary to her panicked voice, I answered calmly. All I did was stop making deposits. I didn't withdraw anything. If there's an unpaid mortgage, it means the payment couldn't be processed. Did you check if there was enough balance on the due date?
You didn't make a deposit? Why?
She sounded genuinely puzzled, which confused me. Because it was agreed I'd contribute to the living expenses and mortgage as long as I lived at home. If I moved out, I wouldn't pay anymore, right? I don't live there anymore. It seemed to dawn on her then, as I heard her take a sharp breath.
Oh, right, then you don't need to pay the living expenses. But can't you still contribute to the mortgage? Even living alone, you should have some surplus, right?
Sorry, but that's impossible. My current rent is $5,000 alone. I'm stretched thin as it is. I can't afford to pay for a mortgage on a house I'll never return to.
$5,000. But you're just a salaried worker. How can you afford such a place?
Hearing her astonished voice, I sighed. That's the same amount I used to give to our household every month. Asking such a thing now really shows you never had an interest in me. If that's how it is, I can't discuss money matters with you anymore. Right now, it seems like you see me only as a wallet. I could hear my mom's small whimper on the other end. No, no, she repeated, her voice thinner than I'd ever heard. I felt no pity. It's been over a month since I silently left the house. Yet, they never inquired about the mortgage, the living expenses, or my rent. Not once showing concern for my well-being, just money, money, money. It painfully clear they were interested not in me, but in my money. Thus, I felt no desire to share that I was not only working my main job, but also doing a wide range of side jobs online, resulting in a total income far surpassing my dad's monthly earnings. The reason I used to contribute $5,000 monthly, which also served as savings, was because the house still had 15 years left on its mortgage. But it seems my mom had assumed all this time that the money was coming from my dad's income. Given his age and years of service, it's understandable she might think so, But how could she not notice when the exact amount was deposited every month without fail? If she had even glanced at my dad's pay stubs, she would have realized the discrepancy. In the end, it seems my mom didn't care about the source of the money. That's probably why she didn't notice when the monthly income was cut by more than half. The continuation of insufficient balance for the mortgage payments led to the notices, and it was only then that she seemed to realize something was amiss. It's somewhat typical of her to only notice something was gone when it's too late, which made me chuckle a bit. Moreover, lately, they had been caught up in first grandchild fever, indulging Brittany's every whim by purchasing expensive items like baby cribs, strollers, designer baby clothes, and even maternity photo shoots.
But, Ashley, without your deposits, we can't make ends meet. We were hoping you could send some money as remittances.
I already said that's impossible. If Brittany is going to live there with her husband, they should contribute some living expenses. If that's still not enough, why doesn't Mom increase her part-time work? My suggestion was met with my mom's high-pitched voice.
She just gave birth. How can I increase my part-time work and not be there to help with the baby? It's already so hard. You don't expect Brittany to work, do you? How can you say such a terrible thing?
That's not what I meant. If they're going to live as a family in the house, they should contribute towards the living expenses. I did the same. Isn't Walter still working? And you plan to live together without asking him to contribute anything? I tried to answer as calmly as possible, not wanting to provoke her, but silence followed. It might be fine if it's just for the maternity period, but Brittany said she plans to live there indefinitely, right? Dad seems to agree. Then, those who will live together should discuss and decide how to manage finances. I've already left the house, so I can't be part of that discussion. I waited for a response, but there was none. Then, I'm going to hang up. I don't plan to contact you all anymore. After this call, I'll block everyone's number, so you can delete mine too. Goodbye. I ended the call. The last thing I heard was my mom's surprised what? Before she could call back, I quickly set my smartphone to block all three of them. After confirming the settings, I took several deep breaths and walked over to the living room window. From my 25th floor apartment, I couldn't see the people below without looking down. After leaving my family home, I moved into a high-rise apartment building. In fact, my side income had exploded, allowing me to save tens of thousands of dollars a month, even after transferring $5,000 home. Remembering how my mom would spend whatever money she had, I felt relieved I never proposed using my savings to pay off the mortgage in one lump sum. After all, my parents also wanted me out. It's unlikely that Brittany, heavily pregnant, could have moved my bed, table, and other items on her own. Someone must have helped her. While I'd like to think Walter wouldn't participate in such a thorough removal of my belongings, the fact remains that if such a significant move was happening, both my parents must have noticed. On that day, I was the only one who had gone to work, so they were all supposed to be at home. Yet, when I came back, no one said a word to me, and they ignored me even as I was leaving. Whether Brittany asked them or not, it was clear my parents shared the intention to drive me out and had assisted her in doing so. My parents were no different from her. A realization that made me give up everything and decide to leave. Had I paid off the mortgage in one lump sum, the three of them would be living comfortably in a spacious house. I couldn't stand the thought of that. Which is why I chose to live in a high-rise apartment. I remember how we, as a family, used to gather around the TV, dreaming about living in such a place. Despite choosing my new home partly out of spite, it turned out to be much more comfortable than expected. My own furniture, an undisturbed space, the freedom of living on my own earnings, all of these were deeply satisfying. Making my mom believe I was living in an obviously upscale place felt exhilarating. Especially since I impulsively claimed the rent was $5,000, higher than the reality, but she didn't notice. Moreover, getting along well with my neighbors on the same and adjacent floors was a joy I hadn't anticipated. I expected conversations to revolve around income bragging or the number of cars owned, but everyone was modest, making it easy to live among them. 3 months later, my peaceful life was disrupted. As I was leaving the office, I heard a voice behind me. Turning around, I saw Brittany grabbing my shoulder. Ashley, there's something I need to talk to you about. Brittany spoke with her lips quivering slightly. Maybe it's because I've just given birth and am now busy raising children, so my skin and hair are rougher than they were a year ago. Yet her charm was intact, attracting the attention of colleagues and employees from other companies as they passed by. Sorry, I have plans later. If it's about the house, you should talk to Mom. As I said this and gently tried to remove her hand, her eyes quickly filled with tears. Seeing that she was on the verge of crying, she felt the cold stares from those around her. It would be troublesome if I forced myself to chase him away and people who didn't know anything about him thought I was cold. Brittany trembles repeatedly, begging, so I have no choice but to face her. Sighing, I suggested that we go to a cafe in front of the station, and he was very happy to follow me. Actually, I've been having an affair, and Walter found out. He's thinking of divorcing me. These were the words she uttered the moment the waiter left after taking our orders. Sounding like something out of a drama. He did a DNA test on the baby without me knowing, and realized it wasn't his child. He's furious, saying we're getting a divorce. Brittany's whispers, aware that her story was not one I wanted to hear, only added to the shock of the revelations she laid before me. He said he doesn't want custody because it's not his child. He's talking about severing the parent-child relationship. I didn't really understand everything he said, but he mentioned not giving us any money at all and that he'll be seeking damages. Ashley, you're wealthy, right? Can't you do something? I was speechless at her audacity. She was the one who had the affair, so naturally, she'd be facing demands for damages. Normally, no one would want to pay child support for a child that isn't theirs. I couldn't comprehend how Brittany thought it was my responsibility to fix her mess. Why don't you ask the man you had the affair with to share the damages? That's impossible. It was just because I found him attractive, and we dated a few times. I cut ties with him after I got pregnant. You thought he wouldn't find out?
I thought he would forgive me even.
It was clear Brittany had underestimated her husband, disrespecting him to a disturbing degree. Her self-centeredness was shocking, even to someone she claimed to love.
But he didn't forgive me at all. He even said he's been hating how I act like a princess and that being pressured by his parents to have kids since the beginning of our marriage was torture. Isn't that terrible?
Her ability to blame others was almost enviable.
I can't pay the damages, and Mom and Dad say they have no money, so Ashley, you pay.
She doesn't have any bad intentions and thinks she'll get paid. That day, she threw away all my stuff from her parents' house, saying it was unnecessary. I was shocked to see her thinking that someone would definitely help her. I silently get up from my seat without hiding my disgust, and Brittany immediately turns pale and grabs my hand with both of hers.
I understand. I'll apologize. I'm sorry for throwing out your stuff without asking. I apologized, so we're good now, right? Give me the money quickly.
Her attempt at a pleading, sweet voice made my skin crawl. I shook off her hand. Ridiculous. Why should I pay for the consequences of your affair? Just so you know, being sisters doesn't mean anything to me. I hate you. I despise you as a person. I wouldn't help you even if you begged. Leaving money for the coffee we never got to drink on the table, I headed for the exit. Ignoring Brittany's exaggerated cries, which I assumed were a tactic to draw me back by attracting public attention, I informed the staff that I had left the payment on our table and hurried out of the cafe. It seemed she thought that making a scene would make me feel guilty enough to return. But no matter how loudly she cried or called my name with a tone of sorrow, I kept walking, speeding up as I saw her attempting to catch up to me. I didn't know what they would do if they caught me, so I ran towards a place with as much traffic as possible. Despite it being unwise for her to exert herself so soon after giving birth, I had no intention of stopping. After wandering around grocery stores, bookshops, and shopping malls for over an hour, I finally didn't see Brittany anywhere, and could breathe a sigh of relief before heading home. I ascended to the 25th floor in the elevator, quickly slipped inside my apartment, and locked the door. Just then, the video doorbell rang. It's rare for my video doorbell to be used since I don't order deliveries often, and the neighbors usually call ahead if they need something. In a building where sales visits are uncommon, the timing of the doorbell made my heart race. The video doorbell, which rang once and twice, gradually became less and less sensational. It makes such a loud noise that I wonder if they're hitting it repeatedly. Bracing myself, I noticed the monitor was pitch black. Thinking it was malfunctioning, I leaned in closer, only to realize the darkness was actually someone's eye, startling me into swiping it away. Accidentally, I pressed the response button, and the voice I'd heard earlier filled the space.
Just shut up and pay.
Ah, it's Brittany. Fear quickly turned into anger. I thought I had escaped, but now my home was compromised. Peering into a video doorbell so closely seemed like something out of a horror movie. As I remained silent, her tirades escalated. What started as demanding I pay her damages somehow morphed into insisting I owe her $1 million as compensation for the trouble she caused herself. Eventually, she demanded my apartment itself. Overwhelmed by the absurdity, I silently picked up the phone and called the security desk downstairs. They must have already been on it because, even as I was on the phone, I saw through the monitor Brittany being dragged away. I confirmed that it was indeed my sister that I cut ties and requested she not be allowed through, apologizing repeatedly for the inconvenience. She never pressed my apartment's video doorbell again, thanks to the security staff's prompt action. Later, I heard from someone near my parents' place that their house had been put up for sale. Brittany and Walter, neither willing to back down, continued their dispute to the brink of court proceedings. Despite Brittany's struggle, it was clear she was at fault, leading her to finally relent upon hearing that the court costs could also be included in the damages. Ultimately, Brittany agreed to pay Walter the amount he requested for damages. It appears she submitted DNA test results to the court, confirming no parental relationship with the child, thus absolving her of any child support obligations. Brittany, having no savings, left the payment of damages to her parents. However, due to falling behind on mortgage payments, the bank foreclosed on their home. With no way to cover both the wasteful spending and the damages, her parents were forced to sell the house and use the proceeds to pay off the housing loan. Consequently, the family had to move into a more affordable apartment in the neighborhood. Despite a sufficient income from my dad, the sudden drop in their standard of living caused stress and tension among them all, quickly depleting her dad's salary within days after deposit due to their inability to adjust from the lifestyle I once funded. My mom continues her part-time job, and she managed to find new employment. Even with childcare support, balancing work, childcare, and household duties soon after giving birth has left her overwhelmed. The silver lining is that Brittany's child is growing up well. Concerned they might not have enough resources for child-rearing, I arranged for someone in the neighborhood to pass on some flyers about childcare support to them, despite wondering if it was overstepping. On a personal note, my consistent performance since joining the company as a new graduate has been recognized, leading to a promotion. Now leading a group on a new project, my work feels rewarding. Additionally, my side businesses are thriving, with income increasing gradually. The content of the series of articles he wrote as a web writer, one of his side jobs, was highly praised and was sold as a book. The knowledge I was studying, which is often difficult to find on the internet, became popular and even became a bestseller. This success has positively impacted my other side jobs, creating a virtuous cycle. Embracing new challenges, feeling just the right amount of tiredness, and returning to my comfortable home make my days truly fulfilling. Looks like you might get disliked by Dad for that facial burn. Came a mocking laugh from Lauren, my stepchild, over the phone as I stood frozen in front of the blazing flames. What does she mean by a burn? I couldn't comprehend and responded.
What? I'm out and about, unharmed. Huh?
This time, it was Lauren making a foolish sound on the other end.
What do you mean I got burned? What do you know? Could it be?
Realizing Lauren's intentions, I felt a chill down my spine.
Pretending won't help. I don't want to meet you with her face burned. Get a divorce from Dad soon.
Lauren seemed to think I was acting, starting to make selfish demands. At that moment, I realized Lauren had plotted and executed various schemes. Unforgivable. To do all this and not have any remorse. I clenched my mobile phone, feeling my heart pounding fiercely. My name is Samantha. A 40-year-old housewife. I live with my husband James, whom I married a year ago, and his stepchild, Lauren. I met James through a marriage agency. After graduating from college, I focused on my career until my late 30s. Not many women of my generation were so committed to their jobs. Many quit early after getting married or having children. Engrossed in my work, I suddenly realized most of my friends were married, leaving me feeling left behind. Maybe it's time to look for a marriage partner? Prompted by my mom's words, I finally registered with a marriage agency. The person in charge.
Given your age, we might have to introduce you to someone a bit older. Is that okay?
At the agency said. Right, the younger ones are more popular. I came to realize this obvious fact. I nodded to the consultant's words and was introduced to several men. It was hard to find my ideal man. A year after registering with the agency, I finally met my current husband, James. James, 5 years older than me, worked as a civil servant at a government office, with a steady and kind personality. Seeing him as an excellent marriage prospect, I initiated a relationship. Fortunately, James seemed to think well of me too, and our relationship progressed smoothly. A year later, we were talking about getting married. Actually, I have a child. James revealed as the word marriage frequently came up in our conversations.
Is that so? Sorry for keeping it quiet.
James apologized with a look of regret, but I had somewhat anticipated it. The profile James had registered with at the agency mentioned he was divorced.
Now, she's 17 and her name is Lauren. She's a good kid, but a bit rebellious due to her teenage years. I'd be happy if you could get along with her.
No problem.
Leave it to me.
I love children. Thinking having a child was no issue if I could marry James, I confidently replied. James, reassured by my response, proposed. It was the happiest moment of my life. So, a year ago, I married James, and suddenly, we were a family of 3. At James's request, I quit my job to become a housewife and look after the home. I was excited about starting a new life. But there was someone who spoke ill of my new life. Ha! So, this person is our new mom? I can't get along with her. Lauren, James's stepchild, said that to me as she came down from the upstairs room.
Hey, Lauren. What are you saying? Samantha is a really nice person.
That's because Dad is in love with her. I'm not fooled. Lauren, a high school student with a cheeky attitude, refused to meet my gaze and turned away towards the living room. Sorry. As I said before, she's going through a rebellious phase. But I didn't expect her to act like that upon first meeting. It's okay. It's natural for children to dislike their parents' remarriage. But Lauren is almost an adult. She can't stay a child forever. Right. We'll be causing you trouble until Lauren becomes independent, but thank you. Honestly, Lauren's attitude was surprising, but I thought time would solve it and spoke carelessly. James seemed relieved, but even with just a few years to endure, I couldn't help but feel a bit anxious. Months passed, and I had hoped Lauren's attitude would improve, but it didn't. As if embodying my initial fears, Lauren remained distant and even started making snide remarks. Hey, Samantha, do you always stay at home? It's suffocating. I'm a housewife, after all. Housewife? That's so lame. You just want to live an easy life while making Dad earn all the money, right? That's not true. It was James who wanted me to be a housewife. I don't care. Just make sure we don't see each other during the day. Lauren clearly didn't want to see me, bluntly expressing her wish to avoid me. Is adolescence really this challenging? Having no children of my own, I grew tired of being constantly met with disdain. Yet, wanting to get along, I remained calm in the face of Lauren's snide comments. This only led to more stress. My hair started falling out in places, and Lauren,
You, balding.
seeing this, mocked. Lauren didn't make these comments in James's presence, choosing instead the evening hours when she returned from school and before James came home to insult me. Though Lauren had asked to avoid each other, she would actually seek me out. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore and decided to reprimand Lauren as a mom the next time she said something.
You should just divorce Dad already.
To any attempt of mine to find peace, Lauren would retort with insults.
Listen, just because you dislike me doesn't give you the right to make snide remarks every day. That's harassment, Lauren. How old are you? Almost 18, right? Act like an adult.
Prompting me to finally snap. Lauren, taken aback by my raised voice for the first time, replied seriously,
I'd rather be a child. After all, you must think I'm crazy, don't you?
With that, Lauren stormed off to her room.
James.
That night, overwhelmed by everything, I talked to James about Lauren. Lauren seemed to be on the phone with friends, her laughter echoing. Despite it being unrelated, I felt mocked and tears naturally started flowing.
What's wrong?
Seeing me cry, James was surprised and handed me a tissue. After wiping my tears and nose, I decided to tell James everything. So, Lauren has been treating you like that? It's been the same attitude all along. I thought I could endure it for a while, but it's been too much. Remembering the insults hurled at me by Lauren made me cry, despite feeling foolish for crying as an adult. James sighed deeply. Sorry. And apologized.
Actually, Lauren was harassed by my previous wife. That's why I initiated the divorce. I didn't realize the trouble during the daytime when I wasn't home. Probably, Lauren fears you might do the same.
I had no idea. That's what happened? James's confession pained my heart. Understanding Lauren's wariness, given her past with the former wife, made sense. But it's too much. You're different from my ex-wife. Lauren knows that, but refuses to stop the harassment, probably hoping to drive you out of the house. I'll talk to her tomorrow.
Thank you, James.
James's supportive words eased my heart, making me feel much better. I was truly fortunate to have such a wonderful person as James. Despite Lauren, I felt proud to have become part of such a wonderful family. Afterward, Lauren stopped making snide remarks. James's lecture must have hit hard. Though still a high schooler. Lauren is just a child who must listen to her dad. A wise decision, I thought. Finally, a sense of peace returned. And my hair started to regrow. Then, as a result, I stopped speaking to Lauren altogether and felt anxious. Sometimes, Lauren would look at me with dark eyes, as if she wanted to say something. That just made me worry more. Could it be that Lauren was secretly planning to kick me out of the house? I got chills thinking there might be some dark emotion swirling behind those eyes. My bad feeling turned out to be right. Today, a year after marrying James, a major incident occurred. I had been feeling a bit off since the morning.
Samantha, are you catching a cold? Don't pass it to me.
Lauren coldly snapped at me, but I brushed it off as usual and ignored her. Maybe you're just tired. Take it easy until you feel better.
Thank you.
James's kind words touched my heart. I prayed for a quick recovery. Perhaps my prayers were answered, for after lying in bed for a while, I felt better before noon. Unusually, I had plans to meet up with high school friends during the day, so feeling better, I went out. Catching up with friends I hadn't seen in a while was exciting, and we parted ways at 5 p.m. Everyone has their own families, so we agreed to head home before dinner. I realized I needed to do some shopping at the supermarket and hurried to get it done and head home.
What's that?
As I got close to home, I noticed the sound of fire engine sirens.
Is there a fire somewhere?
I wondered, only to find out it was my house that was burning.
Samantha, have you been out? Your house is on fire. It's terrible.
Stopped by a neighbor, I was speechless. People were gathered around my home. Black smoke and flames were rising from the second-floor bedroom, and I felt dizzy with shock.
What's going on?
I frantically tried to contact James, thinking he might be at work, unaware of anything. I also needed to contact Lauren. I tried calling James first, but he didn't answer. He must be busy with work. It's unfortunate, but I had no choice. I was about to call Lauren when my phone rang. It's time. My mobile phone announced an incoming call. Seeing Lauren's name, I hastily answered. Lauren, something terrible has happened. I had to inform Lauren of the emergency right away.
Oh, I heard. A fire, right? Eh? You know about it?
Lauren somehow knew about the fire, which saved me the trouble of explaining, but I couldn't help but wonder.
Looks like a nasty burn on the face might make Dad hate you.
Lauren said with a nasty laugh, uttering something horrendous. Burns? What does she mean? I responded immediately.
Eh? I was out and am unharmed though? Huh?
This time, Lauren sounded foolish over the phone.
Me, burned? What do you know? Could it be?
I realized Lauren's intentions and felt a chill down my spine.
Pretending won't help. I don't want to meet you with your face burned. Just divorced Dad already.
Thinking I was pretending, she started making selfish demands. I realized then that Lauren had plotted and executed various schemes. Unforgivable. To do all this and not show any remorse. I clenched my phone tightly, feeling my heart pounding fiercely. Excuse me, are you from this house? After hanging up with Lauren and trying to calm my racing heart, a police officer approached me. Yes, that's right.
Is that so? We've just had to take one of the residents to the hospital urgently. Eh?
I couldn't believe what the police were telling me. A resident taken urgently to the hospital? I had just spoken with Lauren. That means the one who was taken was a man.
Isn't he your husband? James has. What happened?
James was supposed to be at work today. But what if, for some reason, like feeling sick, he came home early? If James had gone to bed in the bedroom I had been sleeping in until before noon, and then fell asleep? And Lauren, mistaking him for me, set the bedroom on fire. The scenario that formed in my mind made me shiver. It wasn't an impossible sequence of events. No, considering Lauren knew about the fire, this was the most natural conclusion to draw.
There's a possibility this incident involves criminal activity, so may we speak with you in detail later? Yes. Which hospital is my husband in?
We've been informed he's at the City General Hospital.
Understood.
I brushed past the inquisitive police officer and went to catch a cab. I needed to check on James's well-being first. I told the cab driver to take me to the General Hospital. My heart was pounding loudly the whole way. Oh God, please save James. Upon arriving at the hospital, I was told James was still being treated. After waiting for about 2 hours, a doctor came out and asked, "Are you James's wife?" I nodded weakly.
He has burns on his face and right side, but his life is not in danger. Really?
Yes. Relief flooded me upon hearing the doctor's words, and I slumped to the ground. For now, I was just glad he was alive. I had planned to wait in James's room until he regained consciousness, but I ended up falling asleep without realizing it. Samantha. I woke up to my name being called. In front of me was James, wrapped in bandages. I glanced at the clock. It was 9 p.m. Surprisingly, I had only slept for about an hour.
James, I'm so glad you're safe.
I couldn't find any other words to say, just relieved that James was alive. Today, I felt sick at work, came home to sleep, and when I woke up, I smelled something burning and saw flames in the room. James recalled the day's events, shivering with fear. I hugged him.
You don't have to push yourself.
Saying, "Who could have done such a thing?" That's... As James voiced the obvious question and I was about to answer, the door to the room opened. "Excuse me." Entering with an inappropriately cheerful voice was unmistakably the arsonist, Lauren.
Samantha, lying about being out is useless. You were actually brought in with severe burns, weren't you?
Lauren said this, catching sight of me and James. Her eyes suddenly widening.
Huh? What? Why is Dad?
Seeing James wrapped like a mummy in bandages, Lauren screamed, clearly confused by the unexpected turn of events.
It's a lie, right? Samantha was the one sleeping in the bedroom today, right? Why is Dad burned?
Watching Lauren panic, I sighed. Realizing the arsonist was indeed Lauren. She had attempted to set fire targeting me, but it was James who was actually sleeping there. She must have acted without even seeing the face of the person sleeping. That's why James ended up burned instead of me.
Lauren, did you set the fire? Is that it?
Even wrapped in bandages, James's voice carried a commanding dignity, causing Lauren to shrink back.
Yes.
Perhaps realizing lying was futile, Lauren quickly confessed her crime.
Why would you do such a thing? I could have died. Or Samantha might have been killed. That's insane.
James expressed his anger, leaving Lauren dumbstruck.
It's because she was mean to me. How long do I have to feel unwelcome in my own home?
Lauren ranted. I couldn't let Lauren's accusation go unchallenged and began to carefully refute her.
Lauren, when have I ever been mean to you? From the beginning. You didn't want me around, did you? I've never thought that. In fact, knowing about you, I was looking forward to it since I had given up on having children at my age. That's a lie.
Lauren stubbornly denied my explanation. Why was she so obstinate?
Why do I always have to be the one to give in? It was fine just with Dad and me, but then woman after woman comes, and I have to endure being mistreated?
Finally, Lauren covered her face with her hands and cried. Despite her tough exterior, Lauren was still a child. I stopped James from scolding her and gently rubbed Lauren's back.
James told me. Your previous mom used to harass you, didn't she? That must have been hard.
Lauren's eyes sparkled as I spoke.
Yeah. I was told repeatedly that it would be better if I didn't exist.
Hearing Lauren recount her past brought pain to my heart.
I see. So it's understandable that you'd be wary of me. But have I ever been mean to Lauren even once?
After a moment of thought, Lauren weakly shook her head.
No. Right. So, what happened today was entirely Lauren's fault. Trying to hurt an innocent person. You need to go to the police. And tell them everything just like now, why you set the fire, everything. Understand?
Lauren, seemingly out of energy to argue back, just nodded slightly. Seeing Lauren continue to cry, James also gave up on saying anything and just quietly watched her until she stopped crying. The next day, I went to the police with Lauren and explained everything that had happened. Lauren was downcast throughout and answered the police's questions honestly. She's still a child, but nearly an adult. It's important that the police decide the severity of her punishment and that she learns to reflect on her actions. Though I couldn't forgive the harassment Lauren had done to me until now, I thought it would gradually be cleansed away if she received proper legal judgment. I'm really sorry for frightening you.
Yes. It was certainly scary, but if you're willing to reflect, then that's enough for me.
Is that so? I also hadn't considered Lauren's feelings enough, so once we return from the police, I think we should all have a proper talk.
That sounds good.
Let's all talk. Relief spread across James's face. Since James would be hospitalized for a while, it meant the family would be apart. I thought this might be a good opportunity for each of us to reflect on ourselves. Afterward, I visited James in the hospital every day and spent my days watching the news. Though the neighboring houses were not damaged, our home was completely destroyed, so I returned to my parents' home. The loss from the house being gone was immeasurable. However, since we were insured, I'm waiting to hear from the insurance company. I pray every day that we will be compensated as much as possible. The news reported our house burning down and Lauren turning herself in as the arsonist. Lauren's sentence has not been decided yet, but considering it was arson, I think it will be a severe punishment. I don't know if the fact that Lauren was harassed by the former wife and was under stress will be taken into account, but I hope Lauren receives the appropriate punishment. After that, I want to start over as a family again. I'm able to think that now. I decided to work part-time because staying at home all the time makes me feel depressed. I'm an assistant staff at a local childcare center. I'm often overwhelmed by the children's free-spirited nature, but I enjoy working there. The children who happily jump into their parents' arms when picked up are truly adorable. I wonder if a time will come when I, James, and Lauren can live happily together. With that in mind, I'm motivated to do my best in my current job.